Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first ever Top 10 edition of Magic Minds, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And we're going to get started, as we do with our brand new Top 10 show.
I was going to say, you can't say that it's each week. We're going to get started as we do, hopefully, each week.
While it works.
Yeah.
God.
Let's see how it goes.
Well, let's not screw it up. So we're going to get started here. The top 10 best sets of all time. You guys ready for this?
As ready as I'll ever be.
It's been tough. I had my choices locked in, and then for the last 12 hours, it's been a shell game of, do I want this to be number 7? No, this is more like number 3. What if this is number 1? And I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and be like, nope, this is what I chose, and we're just going to ride it out.
I thought it was going to be a simple process, and then I just started writing down my sets and was like, man, there's only 10 slots. And then the extra little nugget of, oh, by the way, not just standard set releases, but all Magic releases are eligible was another wrinkle that I wasn't expecting. And yeah, I feel bad for some of these honorable mentions not making it into the top 10.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the honorable mentions come first, and basically you said, Ruben, you were going to limit yourself to 3.
Yeah, I have a booklet. I could do another top 10 of 11 through 20, but I'm going to limit myself to 3. The first one I'm going to start with is Almond Cat. I don't have enough time with Almond Cat under my belt to know it. Like, it hasn't lived out its life cycle. We don't know how long it's going to be relevant in standard. I mean, I love Almond Cat. It's my favorite draft format. I've said that on the live show a couple of times. But it's only been around for a little while. We got a second set, Hour of Devastation, to come out before we really know everything there is to know about this set. So that's my first honorable mention. It's going to move up.
It's going to.
But you can't get in the Hall of Fame until you retire. You know what I mean? So Almond Cat's going to be my first honorable mention.
Well, not according to the Magic Hall of Fame, for what it's worth.
Fair.
You can get in there at the literally top of your game.
That's fair.
All right, so what is your other 2? Because we got to move through.
So my other 2 are From the Vault Dragons.
Sweet.
Is on my list because it was the first From the Vault, and it started a whole thing, right? When From the Vault Dragons first came out, when it was first announced, it had so much hype. People loved the idea. Hellkite Overlords were like $50 pre-order because the card wasn't out yet. It was in Lara Reborn or something like that. I forget which set it actually was in, but you could play it like 2 weeks before the set that it was in came out.
Wow. Because
it was in From the Vault. And it started the whole From the Vault thing. So yeah, From the Vault Dragons is another one. And then the last one I want to mention is Conspiracy Take the Crown. I think that Conspiracy Take the Crown was ambitious and interestingly previewed, and it was a ton of fun to play. I got to play my first Conspiracy Take the Crown draft at Grand Prix Las Vegas. The Monarch is a really cool effect. They rebalanced Conspiracy. The first Conspiracy was a little unbalanced, I think. I didn't have a ton of fun with it. But they did a lot of interesting things with Hidden Agenda, with the Monarch. A bunch of the cards are super neat. And, of course, there's some playable cards in the set as well. Not going to mention any names, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
That's
Didn't
awesome.
quite crack my top 10.
Well, I tell you, my first honorable mention is just what you were talking about, which is Conspiracy Take the Crown was absolutely genius and had so many cool ideas and worked. I think they just was like, okay, we're going to make this weird thing, and they're like, we like it when you're weird. And they're like, we're going to be so weird, guys. And they just like turned the weird up, and it was beautiful, and I loved it, and it was crazy, and the cards are super cool, and they read super cool, and and I mean, even the reveal of the 3 different names over the 3 different days, and like poor card shops were going nuts because they were trying to get like pre-orders up, but the name kept changing. It was really annoying. So there was that.
Brago got assassinated by Kaya. Yeah.
Magic Origins is my second honorable mention. I was really happy with how that set worked. I felt like it really defined the planes really well. I felt the flavor was there. The flip planeswalkers was really cool. The draft format was good. It was impactful in standard. It had a lot of sweet cards. I mean, there was a lot of good going on in that set. I was really, really happy with it. And gosh, it sucks because if I don't mention Kamigawa, I'll never hear the end of it. But
you have to.
I kind of sort of have to, but in a way that's sort of, that's kind of I don't know. I view this through the lens of not just quite me, maybe just, maybe a little bit more beyond me. And anyway, the point is, Future Sight is my other honorable mention. That set was cool and weird and just super weird. It was like if they made Conspiracy take the crown for standard. That's what Future Sight was. It was just super weird, doing crazy stuff that made no sense and sort of in a bottle, and crazy complicated with all these words, and you're enchanting spells in the graveyard. I'm like, it's just absolute madness. And literally madness was in the set. So
well,
yeah,
every keyword was in the set.
Yeah. So Aaron, tell me, what are your honorable mentions for the best sets of all time?
So my honorable mentions kind of have the same theme to them. I don't really have an order to them, so I'm just going to say the both of them. I chose Modern Masters 2013 and Eternal Masters. It's no secret that I love Eternal formats. I don't really play a lot of Standard, and so these sets were really one of a kind in that they were sets that were just kind of strictly reprints. They weren't meant to be Standard legal, but they were meant to sort of inject these cards into markets and into communities that really, really needed them. I remember how hyped people were when they saw Tarmogoyf being reprinted, because they were like, this is a card that we've been clamoring for. It was $200 for the longest time. And just giving people an opportunity to open these cards. Maybe if you weren't around when these cards first came out, you could experience the joy of opening a Tarmogoyf, opening a Vendilion Click. Some of the cards got new art, which was really, really cool. Eternal Masters especially. And it was just something that we really, really needed. And I credit both of these sets to, Modern is super popular right now, more popular than Standard in the numbers and everything. You just can't really deny that. And I credit the Modern Masters sets with that rise of Modern, among other things. And, I also credit Eternal Masters with injecting more players and getting more players interested in Legacy. The turnout at GP Vegas was great. GP New Jersey was another big Legacy GP. And we really couldn't have done it without these reprint sets. And I think they're really, really important. I think they're necessary. And for the most part, I think they're also really good. They're fun to draft. I'm not normally a drafter. We'll cover that later in the show with another one of my choices. But I think these sets do a lot of good, and I really, really like seeing them. And these were really the first ones to kind of get that ball rolling.
And so, all right, so are those two of your honorable mentions, or are those all of your honorable mentions?
Those are both, just both.
It's okay if you only got two.
That's all I got.
That's okay. It ain't hurt my feelings. All right. So
we'll save that for later.
I have used the magic of Google's random number generator to determine the order of which we will debut our cards, or our sets rather. And so first up, with number 10, is Aaron.
Oh my lord. So I spent a lot of time away from Magic, so a lot of my choices are going to be kind of newer sets. I wasn't really around for the good old days, if you will. And so my number 10 set is Commander 2015. I had never really been a Commander player before. I didn't really have much of an interest in it. I had seen Commander 2013 come out and thought it was nice. 2014, okay, it's cute. But 2015 was really the set that kind of spoke to me and got me to try Commander quite seriously. And I really enjoyed all of the pre-cons. I thought that they were all powerful for me right out of the box. Like, I felt like I was able to really just kind of saddle up to my Commander friends and bring it and still feel like I could compete with them. And it really kind of, I can't think of the phrase, but I got bit with the Commander bug, or by the Commander bug, because of Commander 2015. And now I have 4 Commander decks. I'm always looking to build more. And that really was the set that really got me started on it. It was also really easy to upgrade the decks. I still have my Daxos deck. It's really, really dope. And it just means a lot to me from a nostalgia perspective, getting me interested in Commander. All the Commanders were great, and I thought it was just a really good Commander entry into the Commander series.
Awesome. Ruben, you are second.
All right. My number 10 is Urza's Legacy. I've told you guys that my favorite set of all time is Urza's Legacy. It was when I really got serious about competitive play when I was like 12 or 13. It was the first time I felt like I was really good at Magic. But from a historical perspective, Urza's Legacy is the first set to include premium cards. Foils was the first time in Urza's Legacy. replacing a card that was at that rarity. So you could get just a regular foil rare, and it would replace the rare, as opposed to the way that it does it now. And foils were significantly rarer than they are nowadays. They were like 2 or 3 times rarer. You were not guaranteed a foil rare per box like you are kind of today.
Wow.
And it had a lot of it was the first set that I saw an evolution really in how abilities were treated. You had cycling and you had echo in Urza's Saga, but then you had interesting things going on with cycling and echo in Urza's Legacy. You had non-creature permanents with echo, for example. You had some other things that were in Urza's Legacy were the free spells, lots of free spells, a lot of broken mechanics, of course. Another central thing in Urza's Legacy were the growing enchantments and the sleeping enchantments. Yeah. Things that were like hidden gibbons or the hidden enchantments, basically, where until you did something, it was an enchantment, and then it became an animal of some kind. Just a super interesting, fun set. I had a ton of fun with it. I know it's a small set, and small sets are probably going to get the short end of the stick in our top 10 because big sets, you have a lot more room to grow and expand. But Urza's Legacy is near and dear to my heart. It was my favorite set when I first started coming up. Lots of cards have emotional connections for me. Things like Goblin Welder, things like Grim Monolith have an emotional connection for me. And then even weird cards like Iron Will was like the last foil common that I needed to collect my foil Urza's Legacy set. And so that one has a special place in my heart as well. So that's my number 10.
All right. So my number 10 is actually Aaron's honorable mention, which was Modern Masters 2013. It was the first Modern Masters set. And I think that Wizards, and you can tell this by a lot of the financial articles that came out later, that Wizards really juiced that set. Like it was above and beyond the original juicing formula, which they use today, which is less juice. But there was a ton of money in that set, and all the good cards basically in Modern were, at least attempted to be reprinted in it. As a result, it had the insane Grand Prix, and it had all the buzz and the hype, and it reprinted everything that everybody wanted. And it was it's Wizards' sort of commitment to Modern all of a sudden, and Wizards showing that, look, we're going to reprint these cards. We told you we're going to reprint them. Here is us reprinting them. So that's always great. And there's a flip side, there's another edge to the sword, which is these Modern sets have also shown that when they print something in Modern, they don't print something else in Modern.
Yeah.
And the result of that is often ridiculous, like $50 Noble Hierarchs and stuff, because as the time of this recording, they just won't reprint the card, and they will, I'm sure, in another Masters set when you guys can look back on this. But like, what they don't print is often sometimes more important than what they do print.
Yeah.
And sometimes people feel it that way. But Modern Masters 2013, one of the greatest sets because of what it did. It got the community supercharged. It really skyrocketed Modern. I mean, it was terrific. So next up is number 9. Number 9, going first, is me. So my 9th best set is Dual Decks Jace versus Chandra. This was a masterclass by Eric Lauer to show like when 2 decks can be pitted against one another in so many small, unique, interesting ways that the counter spells always matter, the creatures matter. There was like this 3-mana 2/2 Mountain Walk that was just like it would just destroy you because you had to find a way around the thing. You had to find the spell, and they had to not have the counter spell. There was a ton of those little tiny interactions that really helped define how cool that set was. It was so cool they reprinted it again in what was it, like the Japanese version or whatever, because it's such a great dual deck. And those things I think should be reprinted. I don't know why you have to kind of go one and done. Like Elves versus Goblins was a great dual deck set. But let me tell you, Jace versus Chandra, my number 8, because it was absolutely an amazing sort of, I don't think they've ever reached that height since that time. I think Eric was like, here's the gold standard. Good luck being as good as Jace versus Chandra.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Second up is Aaron.
So my number 9 set, I kind of mentioned this earlier in the show, and if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I'm not really a big drafter, which makes me kind of an anomaly in the Magic community. I just don't get into it. I tend to tune out when it's on the Pro Tour. You will never catch me streaming a draft. You will never hear me volunteer for a draft. It's just not my life. I know nothing about that. But there was one set that made me love drafting, and if anybody ever offers to draft this, I'm 100% there. My number 9 is the original Conspiracy. It was the first ever multiplayer-focused Magic booster set. The plane of Poliano is fantastic. I would love to go back there. I think there's so much that's untapped there. You have such, we kind of touched on it earlier, you have such amazing characters like Brago and Kaya and Marchesa. Marchesa is my current commander of choice. And this is one of those sets where if anybody ever said, I've got a box of Conspiracy, do you want to draft it? I'm in. I love drafting this. I had so much fun playing it. There was just nothing like it. You could tell that they really took a chance with this, and they kind of notched that up a little bit in the second Conspiracy, but they took a lot of risk with this set, and I think it really, really paid off, and it just was something that we really needed, and I just love everything about it, the flavor, the play, and I still love doing it. It also had an eternal impact as well. We saw cards like Council's Judgment, and so
Sure.
Yeah, it's just a great set.
Absolutely. So Ruben, what is our final number 9?
Premium Deck Series Slivers. The first, honestly, the first Premium Deck Series, again, it started a thing. It got very popular very quickly. This is what casual players had been wanting for years. I don't know if you guys remember the build-up to Slivers coming out, but people were like, yes, finally, we get reprints of some of these cards that are reaching astronomical heights in terms of cost. Sliver Overlord. Some of the uncommons were super hard to come by. You couldn't for the life of you find a Gemhide Sliver. Like it was ludicrous. And that was a common from Time Spiral.
Yeah.
Like people just couldn't find copies of it.
It's true.
Coat of Arms with the original Exodus art after the travesty of the 8th edition replacing the kind of art. You had the original hilarious pirate ship art for Coat of Arms included in the set. This was a thing that casual players had wanted forever. It was an interesting experiment by the R&D team at Wizards, headed up by Ken Nagel and Mike Turian, to be able to build a 60-card deck that you could take out of the box and play against your friends. I think that it was a super cool idea that pretty much exclusively panned out. Every idea they had, the different alt foiling process was very popular when it first came out. This was the first time that they included a spin down life counter, if I recall correctly, that had the 20 replaced by the Sliver Claw. This was a super popular set for years after its release, and led to other premium deck series like Graveborn and Fire and Lightning coming out. So that's my number 8, or number 9.
Number 9, got it.
Came out in 2009.
Fair enough. But also, as we go into number 8, Ruben, you are kicking us off with what your number 8 happens to be.
Well, as my number 9 was released in 2009, my number 8 is 8th edition. And the reason why I'm picking 8th edition, it's a bit of a weird choice. I know. I've bemused the purpose of 8th edition being in Modern. I've said, why is this thing even here? It's a weird set. It's white border, but it's my number 8 for a very important reason. New borders. This was the anniversary of Magic's birth. So just as we're celebrating the 25th anniversary this year, this was on the 10th anniversary of Magic's creation, and they changed the card frame, and it was a huge deal. This was the first set that included the new bubble lettering, and they changed artifacts from being dark brown to their current gray. And there were a lot of interesting things going on in 8th edition. They had a lot of fun reprints, things like Blinding Angel and Two-Headed Dragon from Mercadian Masks block, which wasn't particularly popular. They had a lot of cool stuff happening. In addition, there were some rule changes. There was no longer putting card drawing on the stack, for example. And they also altered how the basic lands looked from what they used to look like with the tap, add mana to your mana pool to their current big mana symbol kind of thing. And so there's a lot of interesting things happening in 8th edition. Mostly I'm choosing it because it changed the way all Magic cards looked. And that's why I'm picking it.
Aaron, let's see. Are you second?
I am second.
You
And
are
I want to
second.
segue into change, Ruben, because the set that I chose for number 8 was all about change, specifically the destruction of a plane or close to it. My number 8 set is Shards of Lara.
Wow.
This was actually the first set to include the new rarity level of Mythic Rare, which I didn't know. And it was also the first set to institute the replacement of one of the commons in the booster pack to a basic land, which was the first time this was done outside of a core set. I didn't know that either. But I love this set. This was the first set to really lean on the concept of the shards, which are Bant, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Naya, which terms we still use, terms we still love, terms we still identify with to this day. I think of LRR and Jund about. I think of LSV naming his daughter Naya. These are terms that we still use. And there are also a lot of really popular cards from this set. Ad Nauseam, which is one of my favorite cards of all time. Wild Nicodle, which ultimately ended up being banned and unbanned. Cruel Ultimatum, which is still a fan favorite. I know MTG Goldfish has their Cruel Ultimatum t-shirts, which you should definitely get if you're into that sort of thing. And also Either Sworn Candidist, which is a really popular card, and which is a card that Christine Sprinkle needs to cosplay one day. I cannot look at that card without thinking of her. And I just have a lot of great memories of Shards of Lara. It's definitely one of those sets I wish I was really around for, but I think it's a great set, and it's my number 8.
Nice. Well, my number 8 is sort of a product that kind of kicked it off for a format, which was Commander 2011. This was when Wizards said, we're going all in on this casual format. We're not going to call it Elder Dragon Highlander. Sorry guys, the branding's not as good as Commander, and they were 100,000% correct. But either way, they so Commander is now a thing. They made these decks. They had the 100 cards out of the box. Everybody has a command tower. Everybody has a soul ring. This was actually the first deck-based retail product to contain new and previously unreleased cards.
Oh, wow.
That was the first time they ever did it. And so, not that it's, join forces mechanic was ever really, loved or lauded in any way.
Sure.
But, Kalia the Vast was in this thing. Like, it had some really sweet cards to kind of kick it off, these wedge commanders, and they had the oversized foil versions, and it was super sweet. And it let Wizards really go nuts and make some silly cards that no one would care about beyond their awesome format that, like, literally has propelled collections into the stratosphere of what used to be garbage cards are now amazing.
Doubling season, $60 card and rising.
It's like one of the most expensive cards in Modern, and it's just a dorky, fun, awesome card, and they can reprint it whenever they want if they wanted to. And they can sort of inject that juice, wherever they'd like to. But Commander kicking that stuff off, Commander really taking the format into new heights, and that product absolutely blew up, and we have it every single year. And I think there's a reason, because they got it right from the start, and it's been great every year thereafter. All right, and let's keep going with number 7. Now, number 7 up first is me. That's cool. Well, my number 7 best set of all time is Zendikar. Zendikar was a world where you could be Indiana Jones, and you could go and you could have adventures, and it was sweet, and you were there with the rocks, and they're like floating in the air because reasons, and there's a bucket of island. There's a bucket of island. They had a whole bucket. It had a whole island. It was great. It was insane. And before they ruined it with the Eldrazi, they really, come on, like both literally, figuratively, and fictionally, they just ruined it with the Eldrazi. And, Zendikar had landfall, one of the greatest mechanics ever made. It took so long in Magic's history to find out that when you played a land do a thing was awesome. Oh my God, landfall was amazing as a mechanic. They had the quests, which were super cool. There were so many awesome things that were going on in Zendikar. The feeling it evoked, the artwork was amazing. Like everything just kind of came together. They said adventure world, and by God, they just did it, and it was great. And all the equipment was super cool, and the draft was amazing. It was stupidly fast. That draft format was absolutely blistering. You would lose in 4 or 5 turns sometimes with the sick nut draw. It was, landfall was stupid, and there were fetch lands in it. So if you got the sweet pool or you got the sick draft deck, you could really go off with the step links. But step links won a Pro Tour, like Paul Riesel. And step links won a Pro Tour. That card is a common. It's just like, it's awesome. It's so sweet that stuff like that can go all the way. Zendikar was awesome. I loved it. It's my number 7. All right, Ruben, what is your number 7 set?
My number 7 set is the glue that holds Legacy together. I'm not sure anybody else has alliances on their list.
Wow. Come
But
on,
it's an
Balduvian Horde.
important set. Yeah, Balduvian Horde, but more importantly, Force of Will. And then Elvish Spirit Guide, Lake of the Dead, Thawing Glaciers, Keljoran Outpost. I mean, there's a bunch of Pyrokinesis, Contagion. There's a bunch of stuff in Alliances that's very important. Before Cold Snap got printed, Alliances was considered the third of the Ice Age sets. There's a couple of snow things happening in Alliances. It's just an important set in the development of Vintage and of Legacy. In addition, it also had the various tiers of rarity before Mythic Rare was even introduced. It had the super uncommons, and it also had the different arts for different cards on a couple of the choice cards. And of course, it also has Stormcrow, which is the most powerful card that's ever been printed in the history of Magic. But Alliances, it's a unique animal. And a lot of people don't think of it like if you were going back through time and thinking, what are the best sets ever? Alliance is probably not going to pique your interest. You're like, oh, there's a bunch of cumulative upkeep and a bunch of things that draw cards at the beginning of your next end step. But it's actually the glue that holds Legacy and Vintage together based on mostly Force of Will, but a couple of other picks. So that's why I'm picking Alliances as my number 7.
Nice.
Oof. All right.
So what's your number 7, Aaron?
So my number 7 is Time Spiral. Time Spiral was the 40th Magic expansion, a first expansion to include a separate bonus subset of cards, also known as time-shifted cards. They also are known, that set is also known for its wall clock. There was an image of a wall clock with the mana symbols.
Yeah, you could win that, right?
Yeah, that was one of the promos for when Time Spiral came out. But I love the storyline of it. I love the idea of it calling back previous cards, beloved cards, kind of wondering what people would be like in a different time frame and things like that. A lot of the mechanics are really awesome. Suspend, split second, which is awesome. Flash became an evergreen keyword as of that set. And Ruben, you mentioned Alliances being sort of the glue that ties, certain older formats together. A lot of really memorable cards came out of Time Spiral. Ancestral Vision. Yep. Dread Return.
There you go. Perfect.
Empty the Warrens. The famous Storm Finisher. Hypergenesis. Living End. Lotus Bloom. Just a lot of really iconic cards came out of Time Spiral. The sense of nostalgia, the mechanics, it's just a home run, and that's my number 7.
Absolutely. All right. So let's keep moving here to number 6. All right. So number 6, Ruben, you are up first, buddy.
My number 6 is going to be Zendikar. I think that it's super important in the development of Magic. It did something unique. It did something that no other set ever was able to do and hasn't really been able to do since, which is make you excited to top deck a land. That's it. That's all you need to do.
I've never in my life hoped for that.
I know. Every draw, like you don't play a lot of limited, I understand, Aaron, but even if you have to play limited, you have to play lands. I know that you don't like lands, particularly lands that tap for mana. But it's a necessity. It's just how the game, usually without dredge, functions. And Zendikar was able to make you excited to be man, I really need just a basic land. I don't want to draw any of the cards that I drafted. I want to draw a basic land. It's crazy. And then the other thing that's near and dear to my heart about Zendikar is that I love Nissa Ravain, the original Nissa Ravain, because I played that card throughout her existence in Standard. And I also played a lot of black-red vampires, and there were some pretty powerful vampires. They finally made vampires a playable archetype for the first time in the history of Magic, which was super exciting for me as well. So that's why I'm picking Zendikar.
All right. So up second here is me. And my number 6 is Arabian Nights. Arabian Nights, now I've done an entire history program on it. I love this set. It's absolutely amazing. Its impact in Magic just cannot be understated in terms of like they literally were going to make a purple card back and that was stupid. And someone said at the last minute, hey man, that's kind of dumb. And they were like, really? And they were like, yeah. And then they were like, really? And they're like, no, seriously, that's stupid. And can't take a crap off the back of it. It's the first one to have expansion symbols. I mean, like it had all these awesome new ideas. Like City of Brass was the first card, the first land to produce any color of mana. You know what I mean? It's like there's just so many groundbreaking things that set did. It's unbelievable. So the impact of it, the beauty of it, like when I first got into Magic, like Judgement was just so iconic. It was so cool. All of those Arabian Nights cards were sweet. The artwork was unique and it was evocative. And they're like, we made 5 million cards, and that's like nothing. That's like a drop in the tiniest of buckets today. It's like Joe Blow buys 5 million bulk cards every week or whatever. Right. So like. Either way, Arabian Nights was an incredible set designed by Richard Garfield, in a very short amount of time. Just boop, here's the set. Like the whole story of them having to fax over the expansion symbol and its resolution on the fax was exactly how large it needed to be to shrink it down to print size. And it was just, wow. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I didn't know that.
Arabian Nights, an amazing set. I love it. And that's my number 6. So, Aaron, close us out on here.
Oof, I can't follow that. Like, that's so good. My number 6 is Return to Ravnica. Return to Ravnica was a great sealed environment. It was an environment that I felt I could even play along in and I could understand. And it also contributed to one of the most fun standard formats I've ever played in. We had cards like Detention Sphere, Sphinx's Revelation, which I believe control decks have still not quite recovered from. Like, that was really the gold standard for like control in standard. And I feel like everything since then has just sort of paled in comparison. Like, those are really, really big shoes to fill. Supreme Verdict, Loxodon Smiter, Goblin Electromancer, which helped put Storm back on the map, Jace, Architect of Thought, Varaska the Unseen, who I think is one of the most fascinating planeswalkers, and who, thank God, we're going to get to see some more of an Ixalan. And I was never happier playing Standard than I was when Return to Ravnica was around. And I dearly miss it. I would love to go back, and I thought this was a really good set.
That's awesome. So yeah, and she's going to be a pirate. Like,
yes! Oh my God. It's like everything
pirate snake lady.
A Gorgon pirate.
Pirate Gorgon. Yeah. Pirate Gorgon. Person. There we go.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. All right. We're going to move on now to number 5. And first up, Aaron, you get to tell us what your number 5 is.
So while we're on the subject of sets that invigorated Standard and also sets that kind of let you play all the things, my number 5 is Khans of Tarkir. Khans of Tarkir, I thought had a great draft environment. That was another set that I really felt like even I could play along with because I'm not the best drafter. I used to do this thing where, like, for the first pack, I would just draft lands. And then for packs 2 and 3, I would just draft whatever matched my lands. And somehow I always made really great decks. So I really enjoyed drafting Khans of Tarkir. I really enjoyed the storyline. I thought it was really cool that we were kind of going back in time and possibly we were dealing with Sarkhan Vol, who was a really beloved planeswalker. We got to see some more of Sorin, kind of toying around with Ugin a little bit. The introduction of Prowess, which is now an evergreen keyword. Bringing back Delve to mixed results. Looking at you dig through Time and Treasure Cruise.
Nice.
Jeskai Ascendancy. Saw a little bit of modern play, saw some standard play, and Offensive the Foremost. Siege Rhino. How can we forget an entire standard of Siege Rhino? Sidisi Brood Tyrant. I had a lot of fun playing Sidisi Whip back in the day. It was a great set. It led to one of the most expensive standards I can remember, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I still have the when I participated in the Community Cup, I got to play in the Magic Online pre-release before everybody else, and I got to see the set. And I also have this huge poster of Khans of Tarkir that I still don't know where I'm going to hang, but I still look at that banner and I have a lot of fond memories of it, and I think it's a really, really awesome set.
Awesome. So, because I'm kind of old man Magic over here.
Shake your cane.
As it were. I'll tell you guys. My number 5 set of best sets of all time is Visions. Visions was an amazing set that at the time, block structure was kind of weird and they didn't really know exactly what was going on. And Weatherlight was just kind of a thing out in the open to start another storyline, and Visions was trying to wrap up the storyline of Mirage, but the storyline of Mirage was super boring. And the point is that Visions in itself is the first set to have the 187 creatures, the when this creature enters the battlefield, do a thing that has basically led most of modern design forward. Like, that was so huge, and at the time, like, Mana War was like, whoa, Necrotal was blowing people's minds, y'all. Like, people was like, I can do it, and then I can whoa, and I can bounce in my hand. I can whoa. I mean, like it was really cool at the time to be able to see this stuff. And I mean, there were so many sort of sweet cards in it. And of course, it had tutors in it. It had like vampiric tutors in that set. Like, which there was a lot of really awesome things going on in Visions, and it broke so much new ground. And it was a beautiful set, and it had so many cool cards, and had absolutely nothing to do with Weatherlight. And yeah, I mean, like Visions was so sweet, and it gave us a lot of really cool just mechanics, things that they could take
that
on.
free puzzle box too, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean there were so many sweet things you could do. It was amazing. So yeah, so that's my number 5. Ruben?
My number 5 is Modern Masters 2013. And there's a very important reason why there are two very important reasons why I'm putting it this high on the list. I know it was in your guys' honorable mentions, and didn't quite crack your top 10. It's cracking my top 5 for a number of reasons. One is the first Grand Prix Las Vegas set all the records, broke all the rules, made everything explode. It was insane. It was the first Magic the Gathering Woodstock. It was, if you weren't at the first Grand Prix Las Vegas, it was like, what were you doing? Like, what else could you possibly have been doing if you weren't at this 10,000 person Magic the Gathering event that 5,000 people entered, right? And had just 100 artists and all these people. It was, obviously heralded for a lot of reasons, not least of which is because you could finally get regular bordered Tarmogoyfs. You could get reprinted Dark Confidants. There was a ton of stuff that was available that you hadn't been able to open up in packs in a decade. Not just your favorite spirit dragons, Evan, from Kamigawa World, but you could also hey, look,
We're talking smack, bro.
You do you. But you could also get, Vendilion Clicks, Kiki-Jikis were hard to come by at the time, another your Kamigawa friends.
Right.
And they also did a lot of interesting things with turning with rarity shifting. So Eric Klug owns the Commons Cube, of course.
Yeah.
And there were so many cards that went from uncommon to common that it just completely revamped the entire draft strategy of that entire, thing that you could do. Things that were dropped from uncommon to common. Obviously, Other Vial went up to rare, but they did a lot of interesting things with rarity shifting to make it a playable sealed format for these 5,000 people that came out to this giant event. And the hype surrounding it was just massive. And in addition, it spawned off more Modern Masters and more other types of Masters in the history since. So that's why I've decided that the first Modern Masters 2013, is my number 5.
Nice. So
there we go.
Onward into number 4, because I'm really excited about it. Number 4, my number 4 pick is Alliances. Alliances was one of the greatest sets. It was like, it literally saved Magic. I don't know if people know this. It literally saved the game. I'm telling you, when you lived through Homelands and you lived through Fallen Empires, and Ice Age was fine, but like, people were hurting, man. There was some sadness, and it was harsh, and we were scared that like Magic just can't do any better than this, and this is like pathetic.
Hunkered down in a bunker somewhere and just holding each other.
You buy all these Homelands packs, and you're like, what happened in my life? And Alliances happened, and oh my God, it was so sweet. I mean, yeah, Force of Will, clearly it's holding Legacy together, and that's amazing. But I mean, just stuff at the time, like Lord of Tressorhorn was so cool. That card was ridiculous. And like, it's still, worth the whole whopping 59 cents these days. But, it doesn't matter. At the time, it was a 10-4. It was a 10-4, good buddy. That's what it was. That's what it was. It was a 10-4, good buddy. But like, Balduvian Hordes were just like, $20 and $25, just the hottest stuff until people actually got to play with them and like, oops, they're terrible. And, but like, Thawing Glaciers was so huge. Keldorn Outpost is one of my favorite cards of all time. It is absolutely amazing. Oh my God, Alliances did so much for the game. Alliances literally saved Magic, and it has just a big chunk of the heart right there. Just how good Alliances was to bring back the idea that Magic doesn't have to suck, and cards can still be exciting. And wow, it was a real turnaround for what they screwed up big time. So second up is Ruben with his number 4 set.
My number 4 set is Lorwyn. I'm hoping you guys have Lorwyn's higher up on your list since I'm the first one talking about Lorwyn, because this is.
Of course we do.
Okay, thank goodness, because we only got a few more spaces left, and I was getting worried that we'd forgotten about the most adorable plane in Magic's history.
Pretty adorable.
Among all of the other cool things, let's glaze over the fact that it was just a beautiful, evocative, interesting world. Yeah. It proved that you could have a fantasy world that wasn't depressing, right? Yeah. We had just gone through Time Spiral Block, where everything had turned to crap and all the people were dying, right? Like, we had gone through years of this where everything falls apart, right? And we're kind of back there now, right? We have this picturesque Zendikar world, and the Eldrazi ruined it. And then we have this interesting gothic Innistrad world, and the Eldrazi ruined it. And we have this cool Mirrodin, shiny and chrome world, and the Phyrexians ruined it, right? Lorwyn didn't really get ruined. It just sort of, the sun went down, and then it got a little bit creepy, right?
Little freaky, all up in the lower, y'all.
Shadowmoor and Eventide were weird. Like, the Kithkin lost their pupils a little bit, but that's fine, right?
Whatever. That's just like Tuesday.
That's like if you just turn on Frere Jacques in a nursery, and it's just a little creepy, right? You just picture a nursery in your head, and you're going, Frere Jacques, Frere... Like, a ghost is going to show up, right?
Right.
So, but it's not ruined. It's not people hanging from trees, like on our preview card for Tree of Perdition, right? It's not super horrific. It's just a little haunted housey. And before that, you had Lorwyn, which was this beautiful, picturesque... you look at the swamps. The foil swamps from Lorwyn are the most sought-after basic lands from the last, 10 years. Let's even glaze over the fact that they introduced planeswalkers in Lorwyn. Yeah. Right? The original Lorwyn 5, which, by the way, they just managed to get right on the first Lorwyn planeswalkers, which is unreal. And then, of course, you get to the mechanics, which Changeling is still just everything, right? Every trivia question ever. Changeling is so super important to deck building in a lot of situations. Evoke is still just a hugely important thing these days with Ingot Chewer and Vintage, all the way up to things like Muldrif.
Did you just say Ingot Chewer?
Ingot Chewer, that's right.
You said Ingot.
Ingot!
He ain't got nothing.
My chewer don't want none unless you Ingot. In any case, and then there's the command cycle, and there's the hideaway land cycle. The set, I could just go on and on and on and on, but I won't, because Kithkin are great. And I wanted to end on that, because Kithkin are great. And they won me a lot of money. And so it's very near and dear to my heart.
They also won me plenty of packs and prizes. So
Evan and I had a lot of Lorwyn drafts at Worlds in New York City one year when we were in the basement of Neutral Ground. We would just jam out Lorwyn drafts for hours on end. Back when this was the Spine Rock Knoll Worlds where Pat Chapin and Gabe Nassif had their epic semifinal match.
It's true. I was right next to him. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. So Lorwyn, solidly in my top 4.
Number 4 from Aaron Campbell.
I picked Zendikar for my number 4. Zendikar did a lot. We got the enemy fetch lands, we got the full art basics. I still rock full art Zendikars because that's what I do. The focus on landfall Bloodghast. Come on, I have to. It's the reason I live and breathe. The trap cards, which I think are really, really great. Landfall being a mechanic. The concept of an adventure world, which Ruben touched on a little bit. The fact that artifacts are actual things that an adventurer might need, like you have expedition map and things of that nature. You have kind of the Mr. Toth, if you will, Anawan, who's chasing the artifacts and things of that nature. The initial storyline of the Eldrazi, I think, started off really, really great, and it was kind of corrupted in Battle for Zendikar and things like that. But you have other cards like Iona, Shield of Emeria, which is one of my favorite Dread Return targets. Spreading Seas. My boyfriend loves Spreading Seas. He will not build a control deck without Spreading Seas. It's the card that makes Merfolk what it is. Goblin Guide, which Ruben loves. It's just an iconic set, and I think that's what made I think that's kind of what made Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch such a, I don't want to say failure necessarily, but it's like the bar was so high. And then when these sets came out, it just didn't live up to expectations. And I think if Zendikar wouldn't have been as good, maybe these sets in hindsight would be better. But those are really big shoes to fill. And I love Zendikar. And I wish I would have really liked to have had those sets be, because I wasn't around for Zendikar, but I would have really liked Battle and Oath to have been truer to what Zendikar was, so I could have experienced it. But when I look back on it, it looks like a really hell of a good time.
Absolutely. So Zendikar was absolutely amazing, and this is like my favorite Zendikar story, and I just wanted to tell it really quickly. I'm not even sure if I've told it on the cast already, but I was hanging out in Rome for the World Championships with Mike Turian, and I was talking to him about Goblin Guide, and I was like, dude, that card is bananas. Like, when you get the triple Goblin Guide draw, it's just impossible to lose unless they get unbelievably lucky. And he was just like, yeah, it's a real fun card, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like to play with broken toys all the time, but like, after a while we're shooting cannons at each other. And he's just like, he was like, he said, what if there was like a 2/1 flyer for a white/blue hybrid? And I was just like, and what's the drawback? And he was like, no drawback. And I was just like, he's like, it's fun, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Terry was always just like, well, could we just put the pedal to the floor?
Right. How hard can we push it?
Exactly. And it was that really cool sense, I think, that made that whole world and clearly that draft environment to be really fast and crazy and over the top, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. All
right. So we're going to move on to number 3. My third best set of all time is Ravnica City of Guilds. There was a magical moment when one day on Wizards.com, on dailymtg.com, if you will, they put up a picture. They put up a spoiler, and it was Temple Garden. And every Magic player, literally, the P came out, ladies and gentlemen. The P came out because I was like, dude, I remember this phone call when I was like, dude, have you seen they're bringing back dual lands? Yes, they have the land type. They're shock. They hit you for 2 mana. They're calling them shock lands. Oh my god! And we waited for the reveal of the artwork of all the upcoming ones, or what they would call them, and we didn't know. And it was just amazing. And then there was this hybrid mana that showed up, and then the guilds are super cool. And like, there was this moment, and like, it was, and at the time, like, I dived deep, at that point, and it was ridiculous. And I wanted to, and I was writing, and I wanted to go see like Star City's pre-release. I drove for like 8 hours to go to that pre-release because I was like, these are the guys who bring the content, and I want to see how they do it. And it was a great event. I got to meet a whole bunch of people for the first time, and that set just has so many amazing memories for me. Like, me and all my buddies, like, we're all there. This is before like everybody got married and moved away, or something came up, or they went to school somewhere else, or whatever. Like, it was beautiful, and Dark Confidant was amazing. And it was Bob Maher's card, which is ridiculous, and like the Life from Loan and Lightning Helix gave us the greatest moment of all time. With the Lightning Helix moment at Pro Tour Honolulu. Oh my God. Ravnica has given and given and given and will continue to give, because man, it was just brilliant. They took what Invasion was doing and they said, let's just knock it into a new level. And my God, Ravnica City of Guilds is absolutely amazing. And it is my number 3. So second up, Ruben, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is my last small set on the list, and it's going to be emblematic of the block, but it was a very formative set for me, and I think a lot of really interesting things came out of Apocalypse. The Invasion storyline was really interesting to me. It came about during a time when I was getting into competitive Magic. My most successful deck ever is a result of a lot of cards from Apocalypse. The enemy color thing was as yet unseen, unexplored until Apocalypse. You had things like Pernicious Deed, you had Vindicate, you had Goblin Trenches, you had the enemy color Pain Lands, finally, with Battlefield Forge and Cave of Koilos, etc., etc., etc. You had the enemy color split cards, which, by the way, split cards came about in Invasion. And so if we're talking about all of the things that Invasion block brought us, can't skip over Kicker. I mean, Kicker is Kicker. It's like the thing. So Kicker is all there is. But if we're talking specifically about Apocalypse, you also had the flag bearer abilities, which were super interesting. You had the single colored cards that benefited from having other colors around, such as the Sanctuaries or the Volvers, such as Anna Volver, which were quite popular and constructed. And you had really iconic creatures and spells like Goblin Legionnaire. You had the first Goblin Merfolk, which now we have Goblins versus Merfolk coming out soon in Razorfin Hunter. You had a lot of really interesting things going on, and you had wedge spells also for the first time, like Overgrown Estate. Yeah. I had a deck that revolved around Fungal Shambler when I was much younger. The original Sultai Big Beater brings me back to my younger days and brings me a smile to my face. And it was just a very interesting, fun conclusion. I think it's the most successful, to my mind, maybe competing with Future Sight, but the most successful third set to bring everything together in terms of a draft environment. I really enjoyed Triple Invasion. I really enjoyed Invasion Plane Shift. And I also still enjoyed Invasion Plane Shift Apocalypse. And so that's why I'm picking Apocalypse this high up at number 3.
All right.
Also Phyrexian Arena, in case you guys
also
forgot about the OG. In
Phyrexian
case you guys
Arena.
forgot about the OG, I know you guys probably forgot about Dre, but Phyrexian Arena, keep that one on lock. All right,
wow.
Good.
And I like how, at this point in the show, Ruben's internet goes to the potato. Because there is no Magic Mike's product that does not include Ruben's internet potatoing.
Am I back yet?
It doesn't include, rather. And, yeah. Am
I back yet? Do I need to record any of that?
And then you go, and then we hear you, we can hear you, but oftentimes you lock in the picture. It's hilarious. All right, so for our third, number 3, Aaron, close out this one.
So speaking of coming back, this is the set that I came back to Magic for. I took about 10 years off from the game just because I had been playing the game when I was kind of a teenager, didn't have a lot of money, obviously. I was graduating high school, I was trying to get on my feet. I just frankly couldn't afford Magic, at the time. And so I didn't really play very much for a really long time, but I'd played World of Warcraft for a while, and I was kind of looking to, see what my old friend Magic was up to. And so I remember going on the Magic the Gathering website, and Gavin Verhey had posted a deck list featuring cards that I'd never seen before. And one of the cards that he had posted was a card called Splinter Fright. And Splinter Fright was everything I wanted in this world. And Splinter Fright came from a set called Innistrad. And so Innistrad was everything I wanted. It was gothic horror, it was zombies, it was vampires, it was dead things. It was just the flavor of it. Richard Garfield was attached to it. The iconic cards that came from it: Olivia Voldaren, Liliana the Void, Snapcaster Mage, Delver of Secrets, Geist the Saint Traft. The mechanics, Morbid is one of my favorite mechanics of all time. Do you know how much fun it was to run your creatures into things and tragic slip? Oh my god, it just fills me with joy. Undying, I think, is also a fantastic mechanic, and this set is just everything Aaron Campbell wants in one plane. And I came back to Magic for Innistrad. It has never let me down, and I love Innistrad from the bottom of my heart.
That's awesome. So number 2, as we roll on here, we're getting real close. We're getting real close. So, Aaron, you get to go first for number 2.
Oh boy! All right. So most of the set I'm about to talk about is nostalgia based. This was the set. I kind of talked about the set that made me come back to Magic. This was really the set that motivated me to start playing more Magic. My first set was Ice Age. I know. But as I got older and more sets came out, there was one set that I really, really connected with. And when I think about my being a teenager and my adolescence, I just imagine the rule books from this set strewn all over my room because of all the starter decks that I opened. My number 2 set is Tempest. I have a great affinity and a great appreciation for the Weatherlight crew. Weatherlight was obviously the set where they debuted, but Tempest was really the start of the block where things kind of heated up for that group. Krovax officially went bad. They officially went to Wrath. And I just loved this set so much. I have so many fond memories of this. We also got a lot of iconic cards from it, like Lotus Petal, Wasteland. And when I think of this, I just have a lot of really happy memories. And so Tempest for me is right up there with one of my favorite sets of all time.
That's awesome. So
I was going to say, if you had Ice Age at number 3 or number 2, we were going to have words.
Pause the show.
So number 2 for me is a world where they had a reveal where they showed a card and then they flipped it over to show another card. Innistrad was amazing. Innistrad was unreal. It is if not the best, it has to just be fighting like tooth and nail for top dog, best draft format of all time. It was absolutely amazing. And the flavor was so incredible. The flip cards, the transform cards, everybody lost their minds. How are we supposed to do this? Like sleeves were starting to be like getting people, game losses, and oh my God, cats with dogs. And then all of a sudden Delver shows up in Legacy and people are like, lol, that's a little dorky 1/1. And then it wins the tournament.
Right.
There's nothing about Innistrad that I don't think you can't love. It's just everything about it works. The themes, the mechanics. It had, oh my God, the functional reprints, and there's notable cards. Like, there's Geist of St. Traff was amazing. I loved it. Liliana of the Veil. She's amazing, incredible. Diagraph Ghoul was so cool. I mean, there's nothing not cool about Innistrad. Innistrad is a work of art, and I appreciate the fact that we've been there again already, just like Ravnica. Didn't do it amazingly well, just like Ravnica. But, just saying. But Innistrad in and of itself is a crown jewel of an achievement and could very well be, I think it's what Mark Rosewater holds himself to in terms of, can we get there? Can we top Innistrad? I hope so. And I know they're going to keep trying. Absolutely incredible set. So that is my pick for number 2. However, Ruben, you're going to close us out. What is your number 2 best set of all time?
My number 2 best set of all time is Tempest. I completely agree. I think that Tempest did a lot of really just innovative, interesting, fun, exciting experiments with what Magic could be. It was you were talking earlier about Antiquities. Richard Garfield came back to Magic design for the first time since Antiquities with Tempest. We were following these characters for such a long time, these Weatherlight characters through the Weatherlight saga. And now we come to Wrath, this plane of really big bad guys like Volrath and the Sliver Queen, and a lot of, interesting intrigue and politics. The little tiny insert of the Tempest storybook was the first time I really got into the storyline of Magic. This is, right around the time when I was getting into Magic. I wasn't born early enough to get in there right at the beginning with the Brothers' War, but I came back to the Brothers' War, but my introduction was with Gerard, was with Sisay, was with Karn and Tongarth and Squee and the rest of the crew, Hana and all the folks, and it was a big deal for me to be able to not only enjoy the mechanics, but be able to tie those mechanics into the story in such a fascinating way. And the way that they did that best for me was with Shadow. You had the Thalicos, the Dalthi, and the Soltari, who were on this other sort of plane of existence, living in the same world, kind of. But the way that they translated that mechanically was beautiful. Buyback, with how time and energy and how Urtai could control the portal and all of the different story elements functioning in there, in addition to Buyback just being amazing, and things like Capsize, not just telling the story, but also, winning tournaments with, in the hands of Andrew Cuneo.
Still.
Yeah, still a powerhouse in Pauper, of course. And you had all these super interesting sub-themes. You had the Ilvec, you had the Oracle, you had the Lycids, you had the Spikes. And they all had their little world that was three-dimensional and interesting within this card game. Yeah. And it was really fascinating how they could do that by itself with just these cards and maybe a little book to tell you a little bit more of the story. Tempest was just a beautiful exercise in how to make a Magic the Gathering set designed by Mark Rosewater, Richard Garfield, and 2 others, and developed by Mark Rosewater, Bill Rose, and 3 others, led by Henry Stern, who was an old school developer back in the day. Tempest is my number 2, solidly at number 2.
That's awesome. All right, so we are going to round the corner to our number 1 choices. Whew! And Ruben, you get to close out with your number 1 best set of all time.
All right. I know I'm going to get hate in the comments because I didn't pick either any of the Ravnica sets or any of the Return to Ravnica sets anywhere in my top 10. So bring the heat. I'm okay with it. They're great blocks together, but you got to step back from the painting, right? Each individual set.
It's like a Monet.
Yeah, like original Ravnica had 4 guilds. Return to Ravnica had 5 guilds. Like, come on, let's get it together. The only one of the 6 that had all 10 guilds was Dragon's Maze and LOL Dragon's Maze. So we're gonna yeah. So my number 1 set by like a lot is Innistrad. By like a lot. It's not even worth debating.
Wow.
But I'll debate it. So they did a lot of interesting things. Like I just said about Tempest, they did a lot of interesting experimental things that they could have fallen flat on their face with. And next episode, when we do our worst sets, we'll be like they fell flat on their face with some of these things. And they could have fallen flat on their face with flip cards. They could have fallen flat on their face with, like, curses, right? They could have done a lot of things that were just horrifically bad. But Innistrad was just aces all the way through. The top-down design of Innistrad of being like, what do people want to see in the Gothic set? They want ghosts. They want vampires. They want werewolves. They want the dude who's going to fight the ghosts, the werewolves, and the vampires, right? They got all of it right. And zombies were playable for, like, the first time ever, other than, like, Bridge from Below, right? But, like, an actual zombies deck with, like, Diregraph, Colossus and Diregraph Ghoul or Diregraph Captain and things like that coming out in Dark Ascension and later on. But like they finally made zombies a thing that was interesting, and they paired them with blue, which I thought was quite clever with the Jissa and Geralf interaction. Double face cards. We touched on it briefly, but I mean that was a thing when you recall. That was a thing that people thought was legitimately the end of Magic. They were like, people are printing Magic cards that don't say Magic the Gathering on the back of them. I am never playing Magic the Gathering again because that's stupid. You're ruining Magic. You're stupid. And then they were wrong. And then they printed, Delver of Secrets. They printed all of these great actual werewolves that flipped over. You have Garruk Relentless, which was a flip planeswalker, right? And you had all of these amazing, evocative, cool things that are like, oh, I remember seeing that movie in Magic card form, right? Like you had Ludovic's Test Subject, and you had, what's another good example of a movie like on a card? Doom Traveler, right? Like the guy dies and becomes a ghost, and that's just a comic, right? So you had all these really cool
Zombie Apocalypse,
Zombie Apocalypse, Army of the Damned, Cellar Door. Right? Like all these weird, even like spider spawning.
Butcher's
which was
Cleaver.
One of the most popular. Butcher's Cleaver's another great one. Invisible Stalker. I've seen that movie, right?
Yeah.
And so you have all of these super, and then Delver of Secrets, of course, is Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, which don't watch that when you've just eaten. But watch it, but don't eat while you're, getting back to the set. So there's a lot of really cool things happening with Innistrad, and I just love all of it. It's just so much fun. It's so interesting and evocative and neat. So much so that we went back. And when we went back, it was also still evocative and neat, but it made you like, I kind of wish we just had Innistrad, like original. Shadows of Innistrad is like a shadow of its former self. That's cool.
Wow.
Innistrad,
that wordplay.
Right? Innistrad is so cool.
So cool. All right. So as I'm kind of, old man Magic, sort of the historian outlook of the best sets of all time. And this could very well be seen as a cop-out for what it's worth. I don't know, and I don't really care.
Because
the best set, number one best set of all time, is Alpha.
I was going to put that in my honorable mentions.
Your honorable mention, that set that like the game kicked off with.
Right.
So Alpha obviously created the Magic game that we play today. Nothing has been as powerful as those 3 sets of Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, where they had essentially, here is the original thing that came from Richard Garfield's mind that gave us this unbelievable thing we're celebrating and playing and clamoring for 25 years later. Inside it, like, literally nothing has been more powerful because nothing has beaten a Mox. Nothing has been as powerful as a free land. Like, you can't have people like, power level and blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, have they given you free lands that cost 0, that don't go away and have no drawback? Like, there's always that line. And in a world where Healing Salve is the white part of the cycle, with Lightning Bolt and Ancestral Recall amongst giant growths, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And Dark Ritual is fine. That's a great.
Yeah, when Dark Ritual is like third.
Yeah, Dark Ritual is third. Okay, but clearly, no one could expect them to get it right. But what they did was they showed us the world of Magic, the possibilities. There wasn't even really any flavor or story. You just gave it what you wanted to. You just had angels and demons and dragons, and it was all this cool stuff that you role played with. But now they're things, and they can interact, and the system is brilliant and amazing. And Alpha for me is the #1 best set of all time. Aaron?
So this set is a beloved set. This set is about a plane that I could spend every set on. I would be fine never leaving. I also discovered that this set won an award in 2005 with the Origins Awards for Best Collectible Card Game or Expansion, and I wholeheartedly agree with this. I chose Ravnica City of Guilds. I remember, you talked about, I think one of you mentioned the announcement when the Temple Garden came out and people kind of wet themselves a little bit. I remember when the Temple Garden reprint was announced. I remember there was a panel, I think it was at one of the PAXs, where they officially announced that we were going back to Ravnica. And I remember watching that video and people losing their minds because of how beloved this set was. Again, going back to terms we still use today, we still say things like Simic, Azorius, Rakdos, Orzhov, Golgari. These are terms we still talk about. These are mechanics we still talk about. Convoke is a very popular mechanic. Dredge got its start here. I have to give love where it's due.
Obviously, Ravnica City of Guilds was going to be the Dredge Queen's #1 set. It had to be.
But I mean, more than that, though, the storyline is fantastic. The idea of an entire plane just being covered by a city and sort of the raw politics of that. They have the idea of these 10 guilds who are somehow, still unique, but, kind of have similarities there. And what happens when you put them all together? You have the Dimir and the Golgari who never really agreed to all of this, but they're kind of going along with it, and they're kind of going to mess things up a little bit. And, the characters are just so iconic, and the storyline and the mechanics and just, again, it contributes to a standard where you really could just play whatever you wanted to. We have the inclusion of the hybrid symbols, we have the shocklands and things of that nature. In my opinion, standard is best when you kind of have these multicolored sets running around, like Khans of Tarkir, like Return to Ravnica. And I can only imagine what it was like to have original Ravnica be in standard, because it just seems like those are some glory days of Magic, and there's no set that makes me wish I was playing more than Ravnica. Just reading about it, I would love to read all of the books, and I appreciate the callbacks for it, and I just can't say enough about it. Ravnica is OG for me, and I love it.
Fantastic. So that wraps up our top 10 best sets of all time. Now, very, very, very tip-top. Very, very tippy-toppy. And as a result, I've been writing all these things down as we've been kind of going through here. And what we're going to do here is a really quick little bit, and we'll have official graphics for it later because obviously we just came up with it, which is a Day of Judgment. A Day of Judgment where we will talk about the sets that you guys chose. Well, I will talk about the sets that you guys chose, and you'll talk about the sets that we chose, and sort of rate them.
And we'll judge each other's lists.
We will judge the list. We will say what we think of those lists. And ultimately, I feel like what we have here is, I think there's a historical lens for me. There's an incredibly personal list for Aaron. And there's sort of a hybrid between Rubes, And so, it's hard to say that we're wrong in that I think we just kind of looked at it in different ways.
Right.
And of that, I can certainly love and respect all the choices here because, they're all great Magic sets in their own way. Like the fact that, I didn't have Lorwyn on mine. It was in my honorable mentions. Like, it was just outside that 3. Just like Betrayers of Kamigawa. That was one of mine. Like, ninjas. It gave us ninjas. It gave us Umezawa Shite. Kamigawa was not sucking. Like, it wasn't great. but it didn't actively suck. Like, Saviors was actively sucking.
Look, Magic's great. They're going to be great sets at 11 through 20.
Right.
It's just what it is. Not everything can be a top 10. Absolutely.
So ultimately, I think that your guys' lists really work for what I think you guys were going for, and so Ruben, how do you feel about the lists?
Yeah, you guys do okay. It was a good effort. I think that Alpha at #1 is a bit of a cop-out. I think you're right. I think that was a bit... You're not wrong. You're not wrong, and I don't hate you.
Okay,
but
so that's something.
It is... you're like... When all of the most important cards... when all of the most expensive cards from the history of Magic are all from Alpha, it's tough to argue against, right? But it is still a little bit of a like, you know, like what are we doing, right?
Wow.
It's
a little like what we're doing. Wow.
Like, what are we actually ranking here? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Well, I feel like we had different lenses.
We definitely had different lenses. We had different definitions of the word best. I certainly think if this was best blocks of all time, Ravnica and Return to Ravnica would be like 1 and 2, 1 and 3. Yeah, but I have none of the Ravnica sets in my top, and I think I'm dead center correct on that. And having Ravnica City of Guilds, which encompasses a full 40% of the guilds at number 1, is a bit of a...
But it's the guilds that count, though.
Now we're a bit of a missing.
I mean, who really cares about the other guilds? Let's be honest. I mean,
that's fair. When you don't care about anything that isn't Golgari, a set that's 1/4 Golgari is nice.
Wow. Aaron?
Radiance, or what was it? That was the
Radiance, Boros ability.
Or Graft? Are you crying over the lack of Graft? Because I'm sure not.
Wow.
I mean,
Forecast was kind of garbage. I agree.
Forecast was complete trash.
No, I think that...
worst keywords in a future episode.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the keywords for sure.
I think that, like Evan said, our lists kind of, very speak to our experiences and the things that we've gone through. And I think that I can appreciate your choices. And, you definitely got me to consider sets that I didn't think of. Again, I wasn't around for Lorwyn, and there weren't really any cards from Lorwyn that spoke to me. There wasn't a mechanic like Dredge that pulled me into the set and made me want to go back and see what I had missed. But hearing you talk about it, Ruben, you are right. I have seen the cards, obviously. And so, I do have a new appreciation for certain sets because you two have brought them up. Evan, you were raving about Arabian Nights, which I only know because of Bizarre Baghdad. But
another great example. Completely shifted my opinion on Arabian.
Right, but so it was nice that we had different opinions because, I was not very set in my choices. And I was definitely open to being convinced or, swayed to, maybe rethink my own choices and maybe possibly slot in ones that you had mentioned. So I think this worked out very well. Like I'm very pleased with what you all chose.
All right. So
yeah, I thought we did. I mean, even though I just made fun of you a bunch, but I think you guys did this was awesome, and you guys did great and argued your points very well. And I really liked your lists in comparison to my list too.
All right. So that was our top 10 best sets of all time. We want to hear what you think, and we'll celebrate that. Yes, we will celebrate YouTube comments. That's
Absolutely.
Weird, but it's fine. We'll give you until
just the next ones.
Yeah, through next Sunday.
In our effort to make YouTube comment sections a more livable and peaceful place.
Where you too can contribute.
Yes.
To the community.
To society.
Society. The online, the information superhighway. So we're going to give a random commenter whose comment that we like the best a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com, where we will talk about next week. We'll debut Flavor Text, which is a segment where we'll talk about the comment of the week and give them $50 at one of the sweetest online stores around.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank our sponsors on Patreon and CoolStuffInc.com. My co-host Aaron Campbell. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
And Ruben Bressler. Thanks, Rubes.
Thank you, Evan.
You guys for watching and hanging out, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. So we're going to go to our final slide. Visit our website at magicmikespodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do all the things or social to tell people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmikes, on Twitter at magicmikescast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmikes, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmikes. Talk to us privately at magicmikespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmikes at magicmikespodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes or join us here next week for another Top 10 episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.